My apologies. So I just did that whole thing in silence. Oh no, you guys heard it through the thing. Okay, good. I'm glad that I forgot this mic, but I also forgot that mic. Okay, so the stream mic is on now. Sorry about that. That was my mistake. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of discussion of our automation. Let me pick something. You know what? Let's just try this one. Just pull up that one. Okay, so let me get to cut over to Pro Tools. Okay. Yikes. There we go. Got a lot of stuff going on with this one. Okay. We want to look at more than just the kick drum. Let's actually go back here. Okay. So I've got a mix here. Let me listen to where it's at. I haven't opened this session in a while. Wow, it's loud to me. Hold on a second. Okay, so that mix, this is a static mix. There's nothing going on with this one right now. But let's say that I want to, this vocalist, she was really a mezzo-soprano, but I really, she used to make fun of me quite a bit because I'm a baritone, more or less, and I would write all these melodies for her, and she'd have to really stretch her low range to get there. So when she goes into some of these low notes, you can even see it that she's really pushing to get that out. Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see. Right? CE kind of falls off a little bit right there. So let's actually deal with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do automation, and the most common version of automation would be for your volume. So if you switch over here in Pro Tools, you can actually decide what it is you're looking at. Normally we've been looking at the waveform, which is where you do all your editing and everything. But if we go to the volume, it shows us this line, and that is a representation of the level that the fader is at that we've been using. As a matter of fact, I believe if I move this out of the way and I find her fader, whoops, okay, I got to do this. Okay, so let's just do this. Okay, so if I find her fader, see how the line is moving in conjunction with any fader move I make? Because it's remembering that that's where it was. Now, I don't technically have automation written yet, which basically means that I can move this fader all day long and it will stay where I leave it. So we're going to have a couple different modes of automation, and by default it goes into read, but if you haven't actually written any automation, it actually doesn't matter. We're going to start with off just to make things easy to explain. So automation is off. This means that nothing changes unless if I grab a knob or a fader and I move it and I stop touching it, it stays where I left it. End of story. Now, let's say I want to dictate specifically what happens with the vocal right here. I'm now going to go into auto write. Okay? So auto write mode does a couple things for me. It's going to write the current position of the volume, and it's actually also going to remember the current position of the pan knob if I had a pan knob. I obviously don't have a pan knob because I'm sending this to a subgroup. But if I had a pan knob, it would remember the pan information. We'll come back to that. So it's in write mode. What that means is that when I want to create automation, as soon as I hit play, it's going to record my automation. Now, this can be confusing. When you are recording automation, you record automation by hitting play. You never have to hit the record button to record automation. So normally recording, we have to arm a track, and then we have to hit record up here to actually make that turn off loop record real quick. There we go. Normally we hit record on the arming the track, and then we hit record to record everything that's armed. Now it's just, if this box says you're going to write it, you're going to write it. And as soon as you hit play, it does it. So just know that. It's not about the record button. So now when I hit play,
Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see.
okay, now when I hit stop, you're going to notice, see this little white dot that it just drew right here? Yeah, if I use the finger. That is a node of my automation. I can also get one. This might be a better example. If I highlight this section and then I come up to the top, you'll notice that it looks like my trim tool, except it's on its side. If I click and drag, everything it's highlighted can be adjusted volume-wise. And there you go. See, it's made all these nodes so that it knows that it's the point at which it stops and it does something else, basically. Now, I can come in here with my little pointer tool, and I can grab those nodes, and I can make them do whatever it is I want them to do. So right now, I'm just putting it back to 0. So right now, I've technically done nothing. But I'm going to come back here. Okay, I'm going to drop a node there, and I'm going to take this one and boost it some. And then I'm actually going to click. I'm going to go to my grabber tool, make a new one. I'm going to click. I'm actually going to drag that one up. So I've just made a little shelf. Now, this line represents what my fader is going to do. So watch this fader as we hit this part of the song.
Have to stop and close our eyes to see. Have to stop.
Right? So the fader is following that line. I've just created automation. So you can draw the automation, and whether you draw it or whether you enter it by moving the actual fader, this is the way it's going to look. Okay, so let's talk about, this is kind of tedious, but I just wanted to show, I wanted to explain what all these dots mean. So now that we've done that, let me actually draw it the way I, or write it the way I normally would. So I'm going to have my vocal here that I want to write automation on. So I'm going to highlight this section because this is what I want to do. I am going to go into auto write mode, okay, and I'm going to write it, which means that any move that I make here on the fader is going to be recorded on the screen. So here we go.
Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see.
Okay, as you can see, a lot more points and a lot more jagged because I was actually moving the fader. But this is a perfect representation of exactly what I just did.
Have to stop and close our eyes to see.
Right? So it allows me to do some little minute volume changes, or major ones, of course, and really bring out certain words, maybe bring attention to a bass lick, all sorts of stuff like that. You can do all sorts of stuff with this. So let's look at the modes that you're going to actually be dealing with. I'm actually going to highlight all this and delete it, get me back to square one. So what are the modes you have? Off is the self-explanatory one. Off basically means that even if I do have automation written, Pro Tools will completely ignore it, won't do a darn thing. Write means that when I hit play, it constantly writes what I've got. And actually, let me do something real fast. I'm going to go to my pencil tool. I'm actually going to draw in some automation. And this is totally wacky, useless automation. But now I'm going to go into write mode, and I'm going to do my automation. So I'm in write mode, auto write right here on each channel. I've chosen auto write on that vocal channel. And I'm going to hit play.
Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see.
Notice that it totally wiped out everything that was there. So make sure that when you are starting to write automation that you know what mode all of your tracks are in, or you can start getting rid of the work you've done. So that is write mode. Write mode basically says, as long as the track is playing, I am recording it. And if nothing changes, then I'm recording the nothing. Okay? So if I have done all this work on something and I hit it in write mode, it's going to wipe it all out. So it's just a blanket. As long as it's playing, it's going to write a straight line until you move something. The other thing about this is that if I'm in write mode, and it does jump to a different mode when you're done, which is annoying, but I'm going to go to write mode.
Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see.
Now, what it did is it wrote everything I did, and when I let go, it kept writing until I grabbed it again, and then it still was writing, and then I moved it, and then it moved it back and forth, and I ended up with these plateaus that you see because that's where I stopped moving and I just left it there. Okay? I'm in write mode when I did that. There's another option here that we're going to talk about, and that's touch mode. Okay? So now I'm in auto touch mode. Now watch what happens when I go over there and grab the fader a couple times.
Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see.
Every time I let go of the mouse, every time I let go of the click, it went back to where it was. Okay? So it wrote only while I had the button pushed down and I was grabbing it with the mouse, but as soon as I let go, it went back to what was written there already. So auto touch only writes automation when you are actually doing something. For you guys, you have the control surface in there. If you touch the control surface, as long as your finger is on that fader, it will be writing. Those faders are, they conduct a little bit of enough electricity to be able to feel your finger on them. So as long as you touch that fader, you are writing automation. As soon as you let go, it will bounce back to where it's supposed to be. So I can, as a matter of fact, stay in auto touch mode, and I could even modify this, but not delete what I have already.
Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see.
See, I just added those little bumps, and it didn't erase what I had before because I'm in auto touch. It only wrote when I actually touched it. Okay? So auto write writes the entire time that it's playing, no matter what you do. If I hit write again,
Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see.
I never touched the fader, therefore it just wrote over everything I just did. And I've got a flat line now. But also notice that it left this alone. That's because I stopped the playback before I got there. So that's an important thing to remember too. You have to let things play out if you're going to record over them or you're going to create new automation. Now, auto latch is an interesting one that is sometimes useful. Let's say that she just isn't loud enough for this entire thing and I want to boost her. So here's what auto latch does. And actually, we're good. Okay. Auto latch does this.
Sometimes we have to stop and close our.
Okay? It's like auto touch. It didn't start writing until I grabbed it, but as soon as it started writing, it never stopped writing. So auto latch is good if you know that like the first half of something is you want to keep, and then you want to change the back end of it. Okay? So auto latch will keep it like that the whole time. Like I don't use auto latch much, but when I use auto latch, it's usually because, like, let's say that you went back to mix Find My Way, now that you know how to do automation. And Find My Way, the first 80% of that song is quiet and subdued, and then the last chorus is rocked out for, like, I know it's not really a rock tune, but it's kind of rocked out. It's a little bit louder. So I specifically remember using latch because I mention this as the example every year. When I get to the end of that track, I would push up her vocal and then let go and just let the track ride out because her vocal wanted to be louder than the rest of the song. So latch is good for that kind of thing. Okay, so we've talked about writing and touch. off is pretty self-explanatory. Read means that if it's in read mode, it means that it's going to do whatever you have recorded in previously. But the cool thing about read mode is that I can grab the fader and I can try to counteract the automation, but it won't write anything. So it won't commit to anything. So I'm going to grab the fader here while it's playing. We're in read mode.
Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see.
Right? It didn't write a single thing. It kept all of the work that I've done so far. It didn't write anything. So this is really useful when you're going to rehearse your automation moves, because you basically are making a performance. So if I've got a bunch of automation done and I'm like, you know what, I just want to boost that one word, then I can do a loop and I can sit there and go, if I grab it and go boom, boom, oh, oops, last time I did it, it was too much. So maybe I only want to go to +3, or maybe I want to go all the way to 12. I can practice my move before I commit to that automation. Okay? So read, and of course read is the thing you want to be in when you're actually mixing your track, when you're actually bouncing it down and you're done. You just want it to read everything as it goes. Okay, so we've talked about off. Read is self-explanatory. Write is self-explanatory. Touch only writes when you touch it. Latch doesn't write until you touch it, and then it continues to write. And then touch latch, to be quite honest, this is a new setting. I did not realize this was added, so I'm going to have to crack the manual on this one. I'm not ashamed to say that. My guess is that it does something automatically for you, and I'm personally, in my workflow, I tend to not like Pro Tools to do things automatically for me. I like to be in control of it. So there it is. Oh, trim. This is also a new thing here. So this allows you to basically say, my automation is great, but the whole thing needs to turn down a little bit. Like, I want all the moves, but it's just too loud overall. Trim allows me to give you this little gold fader and say, keep all of my moves, keep all the work I've done, just turn the whole damn thing down a little bit. So that's what trim is for. Oops, let me turn off that there. Okay, that should be pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to wait for the stream to catch up. Let me know if any of that doesn't make sense before I go on to the next thing. Okay, now, part 2 of this gets a little bit more intense. I'm going to go to a different track because I need a pan knob to talk about this. Actually, let's just make life easy and let's just put this to the main output, and then we can just stick with what we got. So now I have my pan knob back. And as you can expect, if I pull this down, I also have the option for the pan knob to happen here as well. If I move this thing around, you'll see that change. Okay, so there's my pan knob, and then I also have my mute, and then I also have volume trim, volume. So volume, mute, and pan are really the three that you automate. Okay, so I can also come in here and I can go to my panning, and I'm going to grab my pencil tool and just draw in some of my own automation. Again, doesn't really mean anything. So now when I play this, you can see my pan knob go back and forth.
Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see.
Okay, so the pan knob is happening at the same time as all those volume changes that I had as well, right? Because I still have volume, not very much, but I still have some volume things going on as well. Here's where you run into an issue. Unless you have a control surface like we do in the studio, but if you're working at home or if you're working on a laptop, the problem with this is that when I go in here and I say, you know what, I want to write me some panning automation. I'm going to come in here and say auto write, and let's do some panning.
Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see.
Yay, except I just wiped out all my volume automation. So now you got a problem, because whenever you do an automation writes or a touch or anything, it writes mute, pan, and volume all at the same time. And if you go to do one, you'll erase the other. So there's a way around that, and it's up here in your Windows, and it is your automation window. Yours, this is Pro Tools Ultimate that I'm working on, so honestly, let me put it down here. Yours looks more like that. So you won't have all this extra crap at the bottom. So don't, you can ignore that stuff. You're going to have this part right here. The rest of this is for Atmos, which we don't even have an Atmos system, so it's pretty much useless for the most part. You're not missing anything. Write Enable says, what things am I writing? So am I, even the plugin can be automated. We'll get to that here in a second. But I have the volume, the pan, and the mute, like I said. And also it has send volume, send pan, and send mute. So all 6 of those, well, 7 of those things, well, 6, I'll explain why here in a second. These 6 here are being written every single time that I go into write mode. These middle 6, ignore the plugin, because you have to turn the plugin automation on per plugin. So by default, you're not writing your plugin stuff really, even though this is on. So it's writing all of this at once. So as I'm sure you've probably figured out by now, I can say, you know what, I want to save that pan information I just did, but I want to write new volume information. Great, then I will disable the panning automation writing. And now when I go back in here, as I go in here and write my new volume automation, you're going to notice that my pan knob's going crazy because it's reading the pan knob because it's been told not to record over it.
Sometimes we have to stop and close our eyes to see.
Right? So now I still have both of the things that I wanted. And of course, it'll work the other way too. You can turn off the write enable for the volume and then just do the pan. So that is how you can deal with doing the different parameters in different passes. Let's go and make a send. I do have a Vox verb send. This stuff can also be written, as you can see here, right? So if I want my reverb to be more or less, I can go back in and I could turn off volume, pan, mute. I could turn off everything except for send volume, and then I could record send volume in an automation pass. Or I could mute my sends, mute my sends, or I could even do the panning of my sends as well. So if you want to do any of that, you got to make sure that you've got this window open here. Now, suspend just shuts everything down. Suspend basically says, suspend instantly puts everybody in read mode, is basically what's happening. I'm sorry, not read mode, in off mode. Suspend just means nothing happening.
Sometimes we have to stop it.
Right? We're back to automation off. So why would you hit suspend instead of automation off? Because if I've got a session with 20 tracks in it, and some of them are automation off and some of them are automation read, and maybe some of them have been in touch mode, and I don't want to undo all of that, I can just suspend the whole thing temporarily and then get back to working on whatever else it is I need to go to, and then I can come back to it, unsuspend it, and then get back to work. So I don't use suspend very often. I usually don't find myself in that situation, but that is one of the, again, it's another way to do something that Pro Tools just gives you yet another option. Let me turn all this back on. So as you've seen, you can do it by grabbing it and moving the fader or the knob. You can do it by drawing with the pencil tool. You got to come up and change to the pencil tool, and then you can draw your automation if you really want it. If you're in the Smart tool and you highlight a section, you can move entire chunks up and down as one piece. Okay? Now, there is something that I want you're going to need to be aware of, though, because once you start going in here and editing and changing things, you need to be aware of, I'm going to put this in the corner for now. You need to be aware of how it behaves. So I'm going to do a quick write. Whoops, not even thinking. On the vocal, real fast. Okay, meaningless automation doesn't make any sense. The reason I did this is because I want to show you something. The behaviors of Pro Tools. If I highlight from here to here, notice where the dots are? Watch what happens. It took the two dots outside of the range that I highlighted and it connected those two. It deleted everything that was, excuse me, everything that was within it, right? It ignored the fact that this used to be a straight line. It went straight from this dot to this dot. So know that if you delete stuff, it will create a straight line between the two nodes that are outside of the zone you selected. So you got to understand that on the when you make an edit on your automation. If I really didn't want to get rid of this dot, I would specifically have to zoom way the hell in here. Let's say I liked that straight line, but I just didn't like the way it climbed. I wanted it to be more direct. I would have to go in there and specifically go between those nodes to make that line what I wanted it to be. Okay? So just be aware of the behaviors of the deleting. So I can say, you know what? This is actually going to look pretty good. So like, okay, this is a better example. So let's say I want this to just stay straight until it gets to the climb. Well, if I go and just cut this out, it's going to do a gentle rise the whole time. I specifically have to go, okay, I want that, and I want it to go there. Now I leveled it out the way I want, and I still have this little rise here. So just really be aware of what it is you're deleting if you're going to delete any automation. Okay. Now let's say I wanted to take the... Wow, I don't really have anything going on this. Let me find something. Let me put a plug-in in just for the sake of it doing it. Let's make it an EQ. Okay, so let's say I wanted to do an EQ change on her during this section. So again, I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to turn off everything because let's say I want to keep what I've done, but I want to do something in the plugin. Now, the thing is that I can hit write, and it should do nothing except for write the plugin. So great, let's write the plugin.
To stop and close our eyes to see.
All good, right? Let me hit play.
Close our eyes to see.
It didn't capture a damn thing, right? So that didn't do anything. So how does this actually work? This little box up here that you might have noticed, you have to turn this on. Plugin automation enable, and it opens up this dialog box. And what you have to do is you need to say, which part of the plugin am I looking to automate? So I'm going to say that I would like to automate the mid-band gain and frequency. So I'm going to choose gain, I'm going to add gain, I'm going to add mid-band frequency, and it doesn't matter what else I do to any other band, they're not going to change, only those two parameters. Now when I hit OK, you see that there's this little red dot now. That's telling you that this is an automated parameter. Okay, so now when I play this and I do another write mode,
You come back around.
so now when I play that back,
You come back around.
so there you go. So if you want to automate your plugins, there's an extra step. They won't automate automatically. You have to come up to this box under where it says auto, and you have to dictate specifically which parameters of the plugin you want to control, which is really useful because in this EQ, for instance, you know, it's very likely that I would have used this EQ. I probably don't have a high pass on her now. Well, I do have a high pass on her now. It's this other plugin. I would probably come in here, of course, and do all of these other things that I needed to do to the vocal to get her to sound the way I wanted. And it would leave these alone, no matter what I did. It would just play back that one middle band.
You come back around.
Right? And it doesn't matter what I do, I never lose any of my settings on anything else. It's just the ones that are set up to be automated. So that's how you can automate your plugins. So this can be really helpful for a lot of stuff. Like, I know I made you guys do it as a static mix, but when I did Find My Way, one of the things I did is, of course, I used the right latch to boost the vocal at the end so that it cut across all the band stuff. I also pulled back all of the reverb sends as you got into the last part, so it became more in your face. And I drenched stuff in reverb in the first half and then pulled it back in the end half. So you can do all sorts of fun stuff like that. Okay? You can obviously do that to pretty much any channel. You can pretty much do that to anything you want. The only thing that you do have to know is that occasionally if you start doing any kind of edits to your tracks, like if I came over here, hold on, I think this will do it to me. If I click on this thing and say, you know what, I don't like this EQ. If I go to delete it, whoops, clicked on the wrong thing. You're going to get this. This plugin has automation data. Removing this will delete the automation. You can't undo it. Do you really want to take this out? Because it's basically saying you did all this work to automate something in this plugin. Why are you deleting it? Maybe you just decided it didn't work. But if I hit remove, I cannot get it back. I would have to put this plugin back. I would have to rewrite all the automation and start over on it, basically. So you'll notice that you'll get a lot of pop-ups like that. Even if you start editing, even if you go over here to the waveform and you start chopping up, you delete tracks or whatever, you're going to get a lot of pop-ups that say, you had automation on this. Are you sure you want to get rid of it? So it'll warn you for all those kind of things. Okay, so the track that I want us to do this week is called Oh Baby. So if you go to the class archive, and we're going to talk a little bit about why this is the one to do. There might be more than one in there. You want the most recent one. Like there might be one in there that says "Oh Baby" with vid automation 2019. There should be a couple. Let me know which one you guys have in the chat. Let me know how it's named for you guys. Okay, I want to figure out why. Give me a second. I just want to figure out. I want to know exactly which one you guys have. I want to make sure that I don't know why I did a 2019 one. That's kind of concerning a little bit. It's not two A's and baby. So I had you guys watch some of those Pure Mix videos, right? In 2026? How did I modify it 6 years ago? Or 6 years from now? Pure Mix. Pure Mix with Fab, the guy the LO Children guy. Did we watch any of those videos? Okay. Anyway, a fairly well-known guy recorded this track. That's all I was after. Okay, let me see. Let me see why you have this one versus my 2019 version. I don't see a damn difference. Okay, we should be fine then. Okay, so with this project, there's a couple things here. It's not uncommon for a couple people that have said, hey, I get how you do automation, I just don't know what to do. Like, great, I get how it works, but I have no concept of exactly why I should bother automating anything. So there is a video in this that basically shows you how I did my mix. You do not have to copy it. If you're more comfortable copying it, you're more than welcome to copy it. But the whole point of giving you this video is to give you ideas that you can steal. So let me talk a little bit about what's going on. Let me talk about the session real fast. And you'll see that there's a good reason I picked this particular session. So I'm going to mute that. So you've got kind of a standard rock band thing. You got kick drum, pretty well recorded. You don't have hi-hat, but it's pretty loud in the snare part. Okay, you got overheads. You got a bass amp. And you have a bass DI as well. Okay, and then you have a guitar amp. And then you have this. This is why this is a good track for automation. You can probably already see the problem right there. This is the vocal. And she goes from a whisper to a scream regularly in this song.
Chemistry, her touching wall to wall. This rush holds up against a mall hall, and I'm calling for you, cuckoo, coo, cuckoo, coo, coo. Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby, oh yeah.
Right? She's all over the place. So I'm guessing that somebody's probably saying, "Well, I can compress it." No, you can't. It's too much. You can, but by the time you compress the loud stuff enough to hear the quiet stuff, it's really obvious that you've squashed the hell out of her voice. So you really have to deal with her with automation if you want to keep the voice sounding natural. If you try to do it with compression, it's just not going to happen. She's going to sound flat as a pancake, and it's not going to end up, you're going to fight it the whole time. So automation is your best friend for this track, is to push the fader up when she's quiet and then pull her back when she gets loud. Now, you should do some compression on here, but automation is really going to be the thing that drives this one home. So having said that, you shouldn't have to move every little piece. So there is a trick that I'm going to show you that we haven't really talked about before. So here we go. We're going to take her basic sound, her average level here, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put a compressor on her.
Chemistry, her touching wall to wall. This rush holds up against a mall hall.
Can you hear on the all hall thing? And I'm crushing her. You can hear her go. It's like this choking sound that just does not sound good on her. So we need to be a lot more gentle on our compression here. I'm going to go actually to a very small ratio. I'm barely under, like even less than 2-to-1.
Chemistry, her touching wall to wall. This rush holds up against a mall hall, and I'm calling for you, cuckoo, coo.
So I'm even going to go less.
Chemistry, her touching wall to wall. This rush holds up against a mall hall.
Okay, that's not bad. I'm just getting a little bit of compression on her. I'm at 1.5-to-1. It's a pretty small ratio, but I'm compressing her entire voice a little bit. Okay? That's the thing to notice. I'm compressing everything a little bit.
Chemistry,
But watch what happens when I get to the end.
touching wall to wall. This rush holds up against a mall hall, and I'm calling for you, cuckoo, coo, cuckoo, coo, coo. Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby, oh.
Still loud, right? Still a little much. So I'm even going to back off a little bit for this. So how do I control that? Okay, so here's the way you do it. And the trick is a second compressor. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the CLA 76. This is the 1176 from Waves. And I'm going to do something a little bit different. I don't want this to do anything to most of the vocal.
Oh baby, oh baby, coo, coo, coo. Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby, coo, coo, coo. Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby, coo, coo, coo. Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby,
Okay, so notice until she does her O, 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 she's not doing anything. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make, the attack is fine. I'm going to make the release a little bit faster so it recovers. But I'm going to go 8 to 1. A compression ratio of 8 to 1 on this guy just to capture the loud stuff.
Oh, baby.
Doing nothing?
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Oh.
I'm going to go further. I'm going to go 12 to 1 just on the loud stuff.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Oh.
Apparently I need to go a little bit more input here.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Oh.
Okay? So you get the idea. What's happening is that I am doing a little bit of compression to a lot of the signal, followed by a compressor that is doing a lot of compression to a little bit of the signal. Okay? So what you're getting here, let me adjust this real fast. So what you are actually getting, oops, that's not the, that's the camera. Oh, need a marker. So what you are actually getting from your compression is this. Let me grab black. That looks like it's hard to see. So instead of the vocal doing this, the vocal's actually doing this. Right? It's like the compression curve is happening twice. And basically, the first angle is the Dyne 3, and then the second angle is the 1176 doing its work. Okay? That's going to get you a long way there. But you have to be careful with it because you can start sounding like you're crushing the hell out of her. And you want her voice to still sound natural and open. And if you're not careful, you can blow it away totally. You're still going to need to automate her. Because let me have you listen to the entire track. I'm going to make an insanely rough mix. One of the things that I really need you guys, that is going to be, that I'm going to look at for this track to, and will be part of what I score you on, is that these should be in order, but you need to color code them all. Okay, so this one, let's take all the drums. I'm going to color code them. Bass, I'm going to leave blue because blue is my bass color. Guitar amp, and then my vocal is going to be violet based on my typical preferences. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to play the track for you. The track is very dynamic. It comes and goes quite a bit. So let's play the track here, and I will, like I said, make a rough mix as we go along here.
Okay, I wanna try you on. Our looks are louder than the sounds of our hearts are beating. Looks, they don't need to be read now. We were better when we're faded. Baby, oh chemistry, her touching wall to wall. This rush holds up against a mall hall, and I'm calling for you. Cuckoo, coo, cuckoo, coo, coo. Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah. Whoa. Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Oh, oh, oh. I can feel it day and night. I can feel it night and day. I can feel it day and night. I can feel it night and day. I can feel it, baby. Yeah. Oh, 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 baby. Oh, 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 baby. Oh, 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 baby.
Okay, so as you can see in this track, there's a lot of, I mean, she has a lot of wow kind of things. The guitar is one track. The guitar solo is on the same track as the rhythm. Then he basically transitions himself back and forth. So at one point of the song, it's got to be supportive, and the other part of the song, it's got to be the focus. And you actually have a tambourine on the vocal track right here in the middle. Lots of stuff in here to that needs to, you know, ebb and flow and come and go and be brought up and down as the track progresses. So I'm not going to play this whole thing through it again, but when you open the session, if you mute the band and you just open up the narration and the bounce, you can actually hear my 2 cents. I'll play a little bit of it. You hear my 2 cents about my suggestions here. In this video, I'm going to show you how I used automation for the mix of Oh Baby by the Lisa Colby Band. But before we get started, I'd like for you to mute this track and take a look at the raw tracks. So, of course, you've already will have done that. Okay, let's dig into this mix. Drop back and be more supportive. It was channel 10, which is the guitar. The intro has the guitar boosted, but once it becomes part of the verse, So if I open up the video, you're watching a video of a video. It's kind of meta moment here. But you can see my video, my window when I did my mix here, and then as you play back the narration and the track, it was channel 10, which is the guitar. The intro has the guitar boosted, but once it becomes part of the verse, it's going to drop back and be more supportive. There it is. Now let's look at this vocal. The first thing I did in line here is an 1176 compressor that's doing nothing but catching the peaks. This allows the compressor to not have to work so hard, and it starts to smooth out the vocal. Now, the next compressor in line is actually doing a lot more of the heavy lifting, but it's not... Okay, right, so you can figure this out. You can watch this video on your own. If you feel like you need a little bit of help in guidance in terms of what the hell, like what should I do for this mix? I have no idea. This will give it away. This will give you some ideas of what you could do. If you don't want to use it, don't use it. If you know exactly what you want to do and you don't want me to give you any bias your plans, then fine. Make it inactive. Get rid of it. Just use the track and just move on. So totally fair game right there. Yeah. So this is the automation mix for this week, and it's definitely going to need some automation. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with this. So it's got a lot of potential. Potential. Okay, I'm going to check with the stream, see how we're doing. Okay, so back on the stream. So let's go back to that vocal. And let's, actually I want to be down here. And let's look at my volume. By the way, if you don't see this window right here, this little box, it's because the track is too small. So if you're ever not seeing that, just make it bigger. That's the easy solution there. Okay, so we're going to go down to vocal. Now let's say when he says let's make an S curve, what if we want to make or any other dedicated shape? Yes, you can. You come to your pencil tool, and if you click this down arrow right here, this little black arrow at the bottom of the pencil tool. Oh, I'm sorry, it's right click now. Couple recent changes in Pro Tools. So right click now, and freehand is the default, but you can also have it do things like an S curve, which basically means that when I come down here to draw, instead of freehanding it, I click and I drag. Come on. You should be able to, what am I doing wrong here? Well, this is the triangle version. I can have all sorts of wonky things happen here.
I can feel it when you talk. I can feel it. Oh.
So you can draw all sorts of shapes here. Random is probably the funkiest one.
I can feel it when you walk. I can feel.
Just kind of jumps around and does stuff. Why is it not letting me do the S curve here? Honestly, I don't usually use the S curve, and as you can probably guess, I'll have to look in the manual for that one. I'm not sure why it's not letting me do that. Parabolic stuff, it's not letting me do that one either. But you can go ahead and draw in if you want like a repetitive kind of thing. You can totally just change your pencil over to not be freehand, and you can have it draw those things. Now, you probably noticed it's drawing them based on the grid. So if I go to my bars and beats, it's basically drawing them based on the grid that's set up. Although it's off some. But if I go to my grid and I say I want it to be in 16th notes, notice that now my automation is moving.
I can feel it when you walk.
Right, is a lot more wacky. So you might need to crack open the manual to see the S-curve thing. But yeah, that's how you can change the type of automation that you're drawing. And it can be whatever. So you can make all sorts of roller coaster stuff go on. I find that, honestly, I draw very rarely do I draw my automation. Unless I'm really working with a very rhythmic track that I want to do some kind of effect on. Most of my automation is actually done by push and faders. And actually doing that. It's kind of a little bit of, maybe it's a bit old school, but I still, it's the way I'm used to doing it, is what I typically do is, I'm used to the analog days. Really showing my age when I say that. But I'm used to the analog days of... give me a second. I can show you exactly what I mean here. I don't have a control surface here. You guys do. Whoops. Oh, I see. I gotta change that.
I can feel it when you talk. I can feel it. I can feel it when you walk. I can feel it when you talk. I can feel it. I can feel it when you walk. I can feel it when you talk. I can feel it. I can feel it. Looks, they don't need to be read now. We were better when we faded. Looks.
Okay, so now if I had an actual control surface, I'd be doing this with a control surface, but right now I just have it running through the console. I'm doing it truly old school with faders, with an actual fader here. So this is basically what I'm used to doing, and how I would normally do it, especially if it actually had it was actually a control surface here, is I would play the track.
Looks, they don't need to be read now. We were better when we faded. Looks, they don't need to be read now. We were better when we faded. Look.
Right, you get the idea. That's what's referred to as riding the fader. If you've ever heard that term, that's what they mean by riding the fader. You actually learn the vocal, and you actually just do those incremental moves manually as the vocal goes by, or as the guitar goes by, or as whatever other instrument goes by. And then I would do that I can do that now. I can do that on a control surface and record it as automation. But back in the days of tape, I would literally have to do this for every mix. I would learn the vocal, and I would just actually, there's a loud word coming up. Okay, it's going to come back a second, and then that's a quiet word. I'm going to push it for a quick second. Those little small moves are what make the difference in a good sounding mix. That can be the thing that makes the difference between your mix being an okay mix and being a really professional mix, is those little micro moves. So Waves has a plugin called the Vocal Rider, and that's exactly what they're talking about. Is people say that they'll ride you'll hear engineers talking about riding the vocal, and this is exactly what they're talking about, is literally riding that fader and following their vocal. Nowadays, people use control surfaces and they record those moves. Live sound engineers still do this. I still do this with bands. If I know the song, especially if I've worked with the band before, I'll ride the fader a little bit on certain vocalists. Especially females, because a lot of female-fronted rock bands have... there's a lot of female-fronted rock bands these days, and of course, just because of the nature of the genre, they end up singing a lot of songs written for guys. So they end up singing a lot of songs in a low register that they're not, that they might be good at, but they're not really built for. So there's a lot of times where I'll work with female vocalists, and it'll be like, okay, verses, and well, actually go back to this. It'll be like verses, choruses, verses, choruses, and I'll do that all night, so that that vocalist doesn't have to scream her brains out during the verse and blow her voice out, and then, back off on the choruses. So if I help her out, they are very appreciative of that, so that they don't blow their voice out after doing a show for 3 hours. So that's the kind of stuff that you really want to, that's the minutia you kind of want to look for to really smooth out your mix. Okay, so back to the chat.